All right, welcome to the first video for the first unit of AP Statistics. A lot of you are even at this point thinking, what is statistics? So statistics is basically the science of collecting, analyzing, and the big part here is drawing conclusions from the data. And this is where we will get to at the end of the year, and we'll do a whole unit on this, collecting data. And this unit's going to be a little bit about analyzing it, but mainly we're going to talk about what is data. So Unit 1 is descriptive statistics. We're going to use certain statistics to summarize or organize our data. So before that, we need to talk about what our data represents. And there's a few different things here. So data is an observation on a single variable, or simultaneously on two or more variables. But data is the information that we collect. The data will generally have at least one variable. Any characteristics whose value may change from one individual to another. But who we collect the data from is going to be a big thing in AP Statistics. We're really going to make sure by the end of the year that this is a very critical difference, the difference between a population and a sample. And as the year goes on, we'll actually have different variables for data that we collect from either a population or a sample. A population is the entire collections of individuals or objects about which the information is desired. A sample is a drawing of a subset of that. Now, population a lot of time isn't how you define it. For example, for our AP Stats class, if we could talk about the population of the entire AP Stats class, and that would be it. That would be our population. Or we can consider that a sample of the Freedom High School AP classes, or we can consider it a sample of just general students at Freedom High School, or a sample of students in Prince William County, high school students in America, high school students in the world. So a lot of this is going to be in how we define a population and a sample, but we will keep coming back to the difference between these. A further thing is if we take, and you probably got this in Algebra 2, hopefully, is that a statistic is something that comes from a sample. If we do descriptive, what we are going to do this on a population, we actually use a different term and call it a parameter. And we'll hear that again in the next week or so. So there's two main types of variables that we're going to be discussing. The first one is known as a categorical or qualitative variable, and that we'll generally refer to them as categorical variables in this class. But in case you see it on the AP exam, we need to understand that this is the same thing, qualitative. This is where things are put into categories. If we went out on the side of the road and collected data on the cars that went by and we picked the colors, there's red, there's green, there's blue, there's white, there's silver, there's black, but we're going to drop them into different categories. We're not going to measure the color, we're just going to count them. So generally in a categorical variable, it'll be something that you're counting the number of. In a numerical variable, it's going to be something that has a gradient, a measure. Examples of this are like temperature. We go outside and we measure it, and there's a difference between 73.1 and 72, and we'll never actually get an exact value because if we got a better thermometer, we could be more precise. These are the kind of things that we're going to do averages on and do lots of stats on, are these numerical variables. And there's two different types of variables. There's discrete and continuous. Discrete is the number of students in the class. That's something we measured, but I can't have 26.2 students in the class. If someone's arms or leg is laying on the floor, they're going to call the cops. Generally, we will either have 26 or 27 people, where once again, temperature is an example of a continuous variable. We can always get more precise. There is no step between different values. Right? So what I want you to try and do is, using this slide here, if you need to rewind in the video, you can, identify the following variable types. The income of adults in your city, the color of M&M candy selected from a bag, the number of speeding tickets each student in AP Statistics has received, the area code of the individual, and the birth weights of female babies born at a large hospital. Go ahead, click pause on the video, see if you can figure this out. Write it down on a piece of paper. And then when you're done, unpause. All right, if you've unpaused, then here are the answers. The income of adults in your city is a quantitative variable. It's something that we can measure. It's not a category. The color of M&Ms, though, is categorical. There are red, blue, green, brown, and orange M&Ms. Those fit into categories. The number of speeding tickets is a quantitative variable. It's the amount you can measure it. Hopefully it's 0, but it may be 1, it may be 2. If it's 3, you probably don't have your license anymore. The area code of an individual is categorical. They don't go numerically. It's you're in this area code or you're not. And the birth weights of female babies born in a large hospital is quantitative. It's something we measure. Just to tie it into earlier, while this is quantitative, this is discrete. This one is discrete because you can't have 1.1 speeding tickets. You can't have 3.2 adults in your city. But the birth weight of the babies is going to be continuous. The baby can be different weights. It can be 9 pounds, 8 ounces, 9 pounds, 8.5 ounces, 9 pounds, 9 ounces. And so that's continuous. Lastly, we need to talk about different things by the number of variables we're measuring. So if we're just measuring one variable, we call that univariate statistics. And we'll be doing this until about February. Will be univariate statistics for the most part. Then we'll get into bivariate data eventually, and you've done this. If you've done a scatter plot, you've done bivariate data. And then eventually, if multivariate, which is data that describes two or more characteristics. Luckily for you guys, that is beyond the scope of this class. So when you go to college and you take statistics 2, you can play with multivariate data. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. You're gonna want to make sure you understand this slide for class tomorrow because there may be questions on it. Everybody have a nice evening.